I know in C.S. Lewis studies, you kind of follow rabbit trails of what he studied and people who influenced him.
Right.
What influenced John Owen? Who are the major people, and have you followed down those trails?
Yeah. Like I said earlier, there's not a whole lot of his. He didn't leave many of his personal marks, but there was an auction after his death to sell his theological library. And so we have a listing of everything that was in that auction. And, there's been some caution there of, the auctioneer would acquire that list and then he'd throw in lots of other stuff just to, this is John Owen's library, but then, if he's got a book over here that's not selling well, put it into the Owen library and, wow, it got sold. So there needs to be a little bit of caution about that. But I think the amazing thing, this really comes out in Truman's book, which the title is something like John Owen, Reformed Catholic Renaissance Man. Because he was not just reading Reformed, he was a Reformed theologian, but he wasn't just reading the Reformed writers. He was reading the best of the Roman Catholics of his day and the Socinians and the Church Fathers. So Irenaeus and Augustine and, like I mentioned earlier, Aquinas. There's really a remarkable breadth to what he read and what he interacts with. Truman points out that on the one hand he's kind of bashing all these folks. Roman Catholics have nothing to offer, and this is all popish superstition. But then you see, if you follow the footnotes, in a sense he couldn't say, oh yeah, but they have this of value. So I've thought about this quite a bit because I think in contemporary Reformed theology, we don't like to quote people that we don't agree with, quote them positively.
Right.
We have no problem quoting them if we disagree with them.
Yeah.
But Owen really comes from a different stream where you show that you are interacting with the best of scholarship, and that's a positive thing. So he was really, given his Oxford education, had to read very widely in kind of Western history, Western theology, and Western humanities, logic and rhetoric, and the best Latin works. So he really was a Renaissance man, and his scholastic method and his writing style, which can kind of come across, one person said, it reads like translated Latin. It's written in English, but it sounds like it's translated from Latin. So that can be hard, but I think it all goes back to just, this man had a brilliant mind and was really widely read.
And there's a lesson for us in that as well.
Yeah, I think there is.
Trying to understand the other positions.
Right. And, there were times I think Owen didn't, always give his opponents a fair shake, but he really did. If you look at how much of the Socinian work he wrote through, and people, might not think the Socinians have a whole lot of value to us today, but they were the rationalists and the biblicists of the time. They were the Bible-only people, who just said they were just the proof texters, of the Bible. We don't need to worry about tradition. We don't need to worry about a theological system. It's going to be just me and my Bible. That certainly has relevance for us today. And how do you refute somebody who's quoting the Bible over and over and over and over again? So people involved in counter-cult ministry and that sort of stuff. But Owen, his way of interacting, I think, can provide some lessons for us today.
And there's another book to be written.
That's right. That's right. Maybe you're the man to do it.
Or Joe Carter's How to Argue Like John Owen.
Right. Yeah. How to argue like Jesus, and then how to argue like Owen.
There you go. Is there maybe one thing you can share that has really impacted you from John Owen?
I think two things from his writings on sin and temptation come to mind. One, and it's probably his most famous line, he says, "Do you mortify whilst you live? Be killing sin, or it will be killing you." And the the second would be a discussion he has. I just remember reading it for the first time and really being impacted by it. He talked about comparing the warfare against Satan and against sin to, physical warfare in this world, and how one of the things that a good battle plan tries to do is to understand the enemy and understand his, as Owen would say, his stratagems, the game plan, and then to respond in that way, and to think about understanding the way in which Satan and my own flesh tries to rear its ugly head and to be proactive against sin. I think so much of the time our default is to be reactive. This image came into my mind, or I find myself saying this thing, now I've got to react. But rather being proactive and thinking ahead of time and waking up in the morning with the mindset, I need to put sin to death today. I mean, Owen was just relentless, I think, in his pursuit of holiness, and took the time to think through it, and to teach others about it. These sermons actually, well, the book had its origin in sermons that were given when he was chaplain at Oxford, and he was giving them to 18, 19-year-olds. And just to see his pastoral heart, but just this relentless pursuit of holiness. And I fall into the trap all the time of reacting and asking forgiveness and trying not to let the second temptation come, but to really attack it from the get-go and to be killing sin so that it's not killing me. There's no loafing or coasting. I mean, it is a battle, it's a fight, and we have to keep pursuing it all the way to the end. I think those are a couple of things that Owen's taught me that stand out most of all.
And I know you said you're not going to do all of his work,
Yeah.
but is there a next volume or
There's
something
not-
else you're planning?
There's not plans for it right now.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a lot of work doing those two, and I'm not sure. I mean, communion with the triune God and overcoming sin and temptation, I think in terms of a market for, there's a lot of people, or at least a number of people who would be interested in that, but the popular level interest probably falls off of it after that. So.
Yeah.